Episode 9 was titled One-Horned Ogre, which I think is my favorite title so far for this season because of the duality we get. This can either refer to Androsi or Ho, and it would fit them perfectly based on their actions, especially this episode. We get even more chapters adapted, and I think this is the most chapters for one episode. We got from chapters 44 to 52, a total of 8 chapters, which is, you know what that means. Yep, hella dialogue was cut, and we will go over it soon. I gotta put my disclaimer that the goal of this video is to see what was actually cut, what was enhanced with additions, and what sort of potential impacts it has for world building and storytelling for this series. It's obvious that things have to be cut for an adaptation, but this is less of a negative critique and more what effects these cuts/changes have. I stream every week at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays on Twitch, so come through if you're interested. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos every week. Now, let's begin. Chapter 44 starts with Hots fighting Quant and ends with Androsi trapping the fisherman and Bomb. The anime starts with the Androsi backstory here instead, and I still believe that they should have ended last episode with Androsi making the circle and saying if anyone crosses, they will die, because I think it's a little better of a cliffhanger than Androsi just kicking some rando fisherman. In this case, the rando was Greenpel. Androsi talks about how she was taken in by one of the 10 great families. From the blog post, we know this is most likely Hendo Lok, with the family head Hendo Lok blood matter. The family members were shown to have shorter lifespans because of blood matter's unique way of getting eternal life, which is from his offspring. Because of this, they tend to recruit from the outside, and that's how Androsi got taken in and became a princess. It's interesting to note that SIU did tell us about Yu Ha-song having some ties with blood matter himself in a Q&A session probably a decade ago, which hasn't been touched on yet in the story because, well, but this does mean that both Androsi and Yu Ha-song have some ties with blood matter. We miss a line from Androsi from the Webtoon where she verbally says that, the place was disgusting. We also lose the part about one day beating a older girl. The anime instead says that from a certain day forward, she got all the food herself, which implies the same thing. We get the ending of Androsi's story that she lived happily ever after, and it cuts to the bloodbath of all the other sisters that she slaughtered to get to the top. This is anime only. I really like that scene because it was heavily implied that, but I like the overt killing here. The line in the anime where she says, "History repeats itself," while we pan over the red streaks of blood on the wall was chilling. And again, I really enjoyed it because it gives us more of a hint on how Androsi continues to push forward in this world. Again, the webtoon implies this subtly, but I like the overt killing of the other sisters to become a princess in the anime better. The pacing and the way that the scene was handled changed a little. In the webtoon, Bomb was curious and was asking questions, thinking Androsi would give him helpful advice, and then we get Bomb's realization of what Androsi's motives are, which is a little more character development of Bomb through Androsi's storytelling. However, the anime just has Androsi telling a story about some random girl. Of course, the audience knows that the random girl is Androsi herself, but Bomb doesn't make that connection himself. Again, the studio does an amazing job at enhancing the backstories and flashback scenes, and we will talk about this a little more when we get to Ho again. Only after we see a part of Androsi's fighting in chapter 45, then do we get cut back to Hots fighting with Quant in the anime. Some changes is that we don't have the lighthouse in the beginning of the fight compared to the webtoon, where Hots uses the light from the lighthouse initially to fight. Also, Hots in the anime starts with 2 swords, his usual stance, which one sword gets knocked from Quant's initial first punch, while the webtoon Hots only uses 1 sword from the very beginning. We also lose in the anime, or what we lose in the anime because of course, the amount of content they're trying to fit in one episode, is some of the scary moments of Hots thinking, especially in chapter 44. Hots, while in battle, explains to us, the readers, what makes Quant so amazing by how he moves, and likewise we have Quant acknowledging Hots' technique, which when Quant kind of mentions with the Airy family had a 2-sword style. And we get the lines from from Hots when he says that Quant is a different creature than all the races in the tower, the Rancor. This line is profound because it gives us, and it keeps up the intensity of what a Rancor is and how different they should be perceived compared to regulars, as Rancors have made it to the top. They've completed their journey and they're done. And this is all removed from the anime. Although the hits felt like they had more oomph compared to the past 2 episodes, the fighting was alright. It's not amazing to me. It was okay. It was okay. Chapter 45 starts with Androsi telling them her real goal and ends with the Spearbearer Revolution. The anime continues the Androsi part from 44 and then moves to Hats vs. Quant later. We have the Ignition weapon user tell us in the anime about what Androsi's real goal was, while in the webtoon, Androsi actually told everyone. The whole circle part was completely cut out of the anime, as Androsi just beats up some fishermen. Although I thought it was cool in chapter 44 that she makes the circle while taking out the comms in the lighthouse. Having the circle in the anime would slow down the pacing, so it's understandable that it was removed. I thought they had moved the first part of Hats vs. Quant so that they could combine it with the other part of chapter 45, but they don't end up doing that and they still break up the fight. I think the part where Hats is holding Quant's hands was done really well in the anime to depict the desperation and confidence that Hats had in the Spearbearers. We also had the revolution shown. Granted, their revolution ends a lot sooner in the anime as Quant catches up to Paracool and just one-shots them on the stairs itself. I think this is fine because it's more realistic that Quant actually caught up to these idiots. Chapter 46 starts with Hats losing and ends with Ho and Rachel meeting. So we actually get a cut from Quant and Hats back to Androsi beating up some more fishermen. The webtoon actually has Bomb defend the fishermen at this point because, again, Bomb is trying hard to protect the words that he's come to cherish: friend and team. In this case, Bomb is the only one that genuinely believes in his team, while most of them don't care because, again, it was a random selection that someone else put them in this said team. Also, Androsi says that to protect someone, you shouldn't hesitate to hurt others, which is similar to the flashback of Rachel telling Bomb that if Rachel is hurt, Bomb would probably do anything to save her, even war, battles, or violence. But again, Androsi points out that Bomb shouldn't do that, and shouldn't conform to what everyone else does, and just leave the hard choices to bad girls like her so that Bomb can find his own happiness, which I think was cool because of the choices that Bomb ends up making at the end of this hide and seek test that goes completely opposite to Androsi's advice here. And again, none of this that I talked about ended up in the anime, which we just get Androsi beating up more fishermen. The ignition of Narmada looks cool with the green glow compared to the white from the webtoon. Just a reminder that this ignition weapon is one of 7 of these swords from the hometown that both Huang Chua and Huang Danhua, I think. Danhua is someone that we meet before the Hell Train actually starts. Both of these swordsmen have 1/7 of an ancient monster that used to feed on humans in the hometown. The other weapon that Huang Danhua has is called Krishna. I hope whenever we get to that part that's animated, we have a similar animation style to this green fire that comes from the sword. We lose the part where Quant says, "It wasn't just one betrayal, huh?" to hint to both Hats and us that more is going down. But I guess we already saw Androsi messing things up, so I guess it's fine that this was removed. To me, Quant saying this referred to what Kun told him at the end of Team A's test about Ho and Rachel. The webtoon poses Ho kind of tricking Rachel, who's saying that someone is listening and that someone on the team is targeting Bomb. This causes Rachel to come outside. There's no need in the anime for Rachel to come out of the webtoon so that Ho can talk to Rachel about Bomb. So the webtoon's scenario and setup for Rachel actually leaving the lighthouse is more grounded compared to what we saw in the anime. Chapter 47 starts with Rachel and Ho talking and ends with Quant joining in on the fun with Ho. So in this chapter, we see Androsi's shields that she had used in the webtoon prior in the Crown game round 5, mainly for protection. These shields break to the power of ignition and goes through and still injures Bomb, who decides to protect Androsi on this time. Because again, he protected the fishermen because they were part of his team. He protects Androsi because she is both a teammate and a friend. The anime, just has Bomb take the full front of the ignition, and Bomb doesn't stay standing after taking this hit in this case. This is one of 2 things. We never got the shields, and we'll probably never get the shields in the anime, even though we have that circular shape of the shield on Androsi's vest throughout the episodes. 2, it makes Bomb more sturdier than before, because before in the webtoon, the shields broke, took some of the impact, and then it hit Bomb. Here, Bomb just took everything, the whole force of the ignition, and granted he falls, but he gets back up, so it's fine. The anime makes Bomb's speech after he gets up about Rachel this and Rachel that, which is okay, but his speech in the webtoon was more about his friends in general. I'm not sure which one is more impactful. the anime speech came down to whether or not Rachel hates or likes Bomb, Bomb will do whatever he can to protect her. In the webtoon, he doesn't understand why people fight when they don't hate each other. He's more inquisitive. Bomb recognizes that he's weak and is not capable of doing what needs to be done. And this part about Bomb being weak and not capable of tricking or hurting people, that the anime did pick up, so I will give him that. Bomb says that the first group of people that he's ever called his friends are precious to him, and that the way of climbing the tower by stepping on those friends doesn't make the top worth it. Bomb can't process that something someone has never seen before is worth more than the friendship that Bomb has come to cherish, which makes sense because Bomb doesn't have any overarching goals yet. It's just to keep his friends safe and together. Ho grabs on to Rachel in the webtoon and asks a lot of questions, like what did God take from Bomb in exchange for the talent he has? Ho himself lost everything, but didn't get any power up, so why does Bomb get to be so happy and so talented? Doesn't he deserve some of this pain? Is what Webtoon Ho trays and tells us. The anime Ho just says he has to go up, no matter what, without much explanation to why. Both Ho and Rachel in the webtoon had much more expression, especially Ho sweating like crazy, while anime Rachel and Ho I felt were too calm. Well, Rachel being calm is fine because, again, she knows everything and how this will turn out, but Ho should be more frantic and more nervous. The speech kind of tells us what Ho is really after, to make Bomb suffer because he had all this talent, while Ho had to suffer and not have any of it, which seems really unfair to Ho that Bomb can go on unscathed and perfectly fine. The flow to Quant appearing I felt was better in the webtoon. Anime Ho rants about climbing, blah 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 blah, and then Quant comes in and says you don't have to understand him for the question that Ho poses to Rachel. Whereas in the webtoon, Ho talks about I'll do what God should have done, while Quant comes and counters that by saying a regular like you, the god on the stage is me, which I felt was a really badass moment for Quant itself. Chapter 48 starts with none of the monitors showing anything for Team A to watch and ends with Bomb saving Rachel. Instead of a static screen, we get a cute little background for the monitors not working, which I thought was a nice touch. The webtoon does give us some explanation of how Quant showed up, which was because Rachel turned her lighthouse back on so that Quant could actually follow it. In the anime, Quant just shows up. And then the other big thing, there's no safety zone in the anime, so Quant not attacking Ho makes no sense in the anime since Quant is definitely fast enough to get it done and stop Ho from stabbing Rachel. The threat of the rancor was subverted well in the webtoon with the implication of the safety zone. We don't even have that safety net in the anime, so the scene kind of loses its tension it could have had with a safety zone. With the safety zone, Bomb has to be the only one to save Rachel because Quant physically can't enter. While in the anime, Bomb saves Rachel because, Quant doesn't care, which is false. I think the threat that Ho says in the webtoon where Ho says, Bomb, if you don't hold the rancor, Rachel's gonna stop breathing, is scarier to me instead of saying, hurry up and capture the rancor or I'll kill her. But I feel like this is just me being a little nitpicky here, so don't mind it. I actually thought it was funny that Short Quant called Bomb Shorty. And I also loved how they did reverse Shinso flow with the bubble that pops and then in turn freezes the body of the target. I really thought it would be visually similar to how the Black March froze Bomb at the end of round 5 in the Crown game, but I guess that was a completely different power. This bubble does flow a little better with how the studio has depicted Shinso throughout the season, so I guess it works fine. The point of Quant telling Bomb in the webtoon was to give him a false sense of hope to saving Rachel because Quant didn't expect Bomb to actually copy the technique that quickly. Quant just couldn't do anything because of the safety zone, so in reality he was probably going to let Rachel die while he took care of the revolution, but Bomb is OP. In the anime, Quant doesn't have any excuse, so he just kind of looks like a tool, letting Bomb try to handle this on his own. In the webtoon, Ho has already stabbed Rachel in the back, but the anime handles this better where Rachel struggles and that movement causes Ho to shift and then stab Rachel. Granted, some people were complaining that Ho had all this time to, slit Rachel's throat. The point was that Ho wanted to do this in front of Bomb to make Bomb suffer. He doesn't really care about the killing itself, right? We learned that later that Ho just hates Bomb. That's what he was really trying to do. He was trying to break Bomb, not Rachel. The studio made it seem like Bomb stopping Ho with the reverse Shinso flow causes Ho to fall, and maybe I'm just misinterpreting here, but I thought that Ho fell down after he got unfrozen. In the webtoon, Quant actually calls Bomb a monster too, which makes both Quant and Liraro calling Bomb a a monster. In the anime, Quant doesn't really call him a monster, but he is more surprised that he copied a ranker technique. Yes, it's impressive that he copied this technique, but this statement is false because it's not a ranker technique, right? In season 2, before entering the Hell Train, we have a D-ranked regular, I think his name is Muntari, who was a part of Aka's team that fought, ran, and was capable of using this reverse Shinso flow. So, and he's definitely not a ranker. And this was in chapter 210 or season 2, episode 130. Also, what is Ghost doing? It looks like he's mentally connected to Rachel as he stands up when Rachel is held by the knife, and then disappears completely when Rachel loses consciousness. I did think at the end where Rock is just looking around, looking for Ghost. I thought that was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie, because that's what I was doing. I was like, what is Ghost doing? Although we don't know much about Ghost, this is interesting. In chapter 427 or season 3, episode 10, we have Ghost, who has switched from a spear bearer in season 1 to a wave controller in season 3. Ghost can use the Shinso black hole spear, which only irregulars can use, and speaks to Bomb. So does this mean that Ghost speaking is actually Rachel speaking? I don't really believe this, but I guess we have to wait for Ghost to reappear in the webtoon to know more. Or, I mean, we might get more anime-only scenes of Ghost popping up again when Rachel gets up and scaring Rock. I guess we have to find out. Chapter 49 starts with Androsi beating up the fisherman and ends with Androsi joining the fight against Quant. We have the speech of Androsi about how disgusting she is for using these tactics, and that's why she ends up going to face Quant. I don't think we really needed this speech, so it's okay that it was cut from the anime. And since it looks like Rachel has lost consciousness in the anime, we don't get the few lines she says when Bomb is holding her in this chapter. I liked the line that Ho says in the anime only here, where he says, "The tower chose you," which is the nod to the true nature of irregulars. They are still chosen, not by an administrator, but by the tower itself. The flashback for Ho in this webtoon shows a different face than the first flashback, and the anime corrects this to keep continuity going, which is really nice to see. Although the scene with Ho dying was done quite well, we don't hear the line where Bomb says, "Why is everyone leaving me?" Instead, we have Bomb say in the anime, "Why is this happening?" in a more broader sense. Quant reflecting on this moment was cool in the webtoon, and of course that doesn't make it in the anime. Quant tells us that it's crazy to think that God chose a crying boy because he lost a friend, not a rival. Again, regardless of what Ho thought about Bomb still treated Ho as one of his friends, and we get the first moment of that comparison, that Bomb can't stay with these friends that he cherishes because he's on a different level. A baby shark can't run with house cats, and this analogy is used here, and it changes a little as the webtoon progresses to a shark that can't swim with minnows. Chapter 50 starts with Androsi getting slapped and ends with Bomb joining the fight. Serena's slap felt good in the anime. It had so much force and impact emotionally. I think it was done really well. The scene in the anime afterwards was a little awkward because Androsi just says we have to hurry up because, you know, people are bleeding out, and Quant just kind of walks around to an empty place while Androsi gives Bomb a little lecture as Rachel is bleeding out. Granted, this pacing was also in the webtoon, so I guess both are a little awkward here. The little scene with Anak in a ponytail blushing was cute, and it showed us that this is what Androsi was doing and fighting for, to ensure that Anak passes. These are her real intentions. I like the anime only part about Bomb continuing the climb will result in him causing others and himself pain, which makes sense, but the webtoon Androsi lays out two options for Bomb. If Bomb beats the ranker, Bomb and Rachel can climb, but Bomb will definitely get hurt like this again. Bomb helps the ranker, he can leave the tower with Rachel, but her dream is lost, and it's really this really cool ultimatum that Androsi gives Bomb to choose, which we don't get at all in the anime. In the end, he chooses to cherish and save Rachel's dream, and well, Androsi was right. Bomb gets hurt at the end of the season. Chapter 51 starts with Quant and Androsi fighting and ends with the end of Team B's test. We see more of Androsi versus Quant, which I think was fine. The ignition shots looked amazing, and it reminded me a little bit of the Green April, which I think was a nice parallel. Bomb uses reverse Shinso flow in the webtoon, and he actually says stop, which I thought was cool, but we don't get that speech, which is fine because the visuals represent reverse Shinso flow pretty well, so it works out. I really like the monologue of Serena as these three beasts fight it out. The ending of this fight in the webtoon was that both Androsi and Quant grab each other's tags, but Quant instead grabs her underwear that he thought was her tag. In the anime, we had Quant breaking the vest completely, while Androsi kind of just walks to Quant Quant and then steals the tag. Doesn't really feel as satisfying as both of them reaching for it at the same time and then Quant gets tricked. I don't know. I don't love it. The chapter in the webtoon actually ends with another shot of Yuri's team getting closer to the second floor, which is fine that this wasn't included because, you know, the episode was already packed on its own. It doesn't need this additional scene for this episode itself. All in all, it was a lot of chapters added, which led to a good portions of the dialogue lost. And that, you know, it's bound to happen. I enjoyed Hots versus Quant. The ignition looked cool, and Reverse Shinso Flow also looked cool, but the ending to Quant versus Androsi was kind of weak to me. Again, I want to point out, I don't hate the choices that the directors made for this episode because, again, it's really hard to choose what is needed and what needs to be taken out to be added to make the story whole. Just my thoughts on the episode. That's all for the video. If you get a chance, subscribe to get access to these reviews every week. My social media can be found by searching Inspirational on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. Shout out to my designer. You can find his work on Instagram at JatinV_photography. Shout out to my editor. You can find him on Twitter at YoungObesity. See you all next time.